Shalom, everyone. Welcome to SightedMoon.com. I'm Joe Dumond, and I am privileged to host this meeting today. And we have with us today, once again, Cyrus Harding and Mark Webb. And we're going to be talking about the things that they are specializing in. Again, we have, we're on 3 different calendars, but we still talk to each other, and we're still friends, and we're not ripping each other apart. So, we have biblical understandings that are different, but the overall understanding is that we're working for Jehovah, and we're working to bring that kingdom or get ready to be in that kingdom. I teach about the Jubilee cycles and the how they reveal end-time prophecy. Cyrus Harding, he teaches or is studying the apogees of the moon and how that makes us crazy. I won't even say that. We'll get in trouble in case the women are listening. And Mark, he's studying the constellations and how they're lining up and showing him messages that he doesn't really want to interpret, but he just says, here's what I'm seeing. So we got 3 interesting men here today. And I don't know, who wants to go first? I think Mark wants to hear what Cyrus has to say. I want to hear what Cyrus has to say. And just as a brief introduction, Cyrus, keep it short. If you want to know more about what Cyrus has talked about, you can go back to our other interviews at SightedMoon.com where we got them recorded. You can also go to his website. Let me see if I can throw that up here. Yep, there it is. Codgerville at WordPress.com. And you can find out more information about what he's teaching there. But Cyrus, just quickly, for those that are just tuning in for the first time, what is it that you do? And not what you do for a living, but what is it that you are sharing with us so that we can understand it?
A number of years ago, thank you, Brother Joe. A number of years ago, I wanted to find out why it always appeared that things got hectic around a full moon. So I began researching and found some very good information. I've consulted with numerous people that are studying cycles themselves, and then also emergency medical workers, even gynecologists that gave me a lot of insight. And this has been, I say a few years ago, it's actually been longer than that. But anyway, I noticed that there is a dramatic change in susceptible people, I'll just use it that way, in personality, usually 1 or 2 days before a full moon, 1 or 2 days after a full moon. The more I researched it, the more that I discovered that the Rothschild family had paid Mr. Dewey, Edwin Dewey, to determine if there is a natural phenomenon that affects the stock market, and this would allow them to profit in a greater margin than they normally could. So Mr. Dewey completed his research and showed a definite correlation between lunar eclipses, solar eclipses within 2 weeks of each other. Primarily, that is the biggest effect. There is a little bit of effect once you get further out, but it's within 2 weeks of each other, there's a very big effect.
So you use this
influence of the moon.
You use this to come to the understanding that something was about to happen in November of 2020.
Yes, sir.
And how did
actually
that
it was 2019.
2019, yes.
Well, it worked out too good, I'm afraid. Yeah, it was 2019. In September, I wrote about something would be coming out of Asia, and it was going to go around the world. I didn't know what it was, but it was going to go around the world, and in so doing would affect the price of oil. So I just reasoned that what happened or what was coming out of Asia would cause the price of oil to go up. That was really about all we've ever seen, is the price of oil going up. And it turned out that the opposite was true, because what came out of Asia, primarily China, was a virus that affected the demand for oil, and it fell below zero. It fell to, I think, a negative 38 or 39. So people were actually having to pay other people to take their oil or hold their oil, because there was at that time zero for it.
Yeah, did we just lose your mic?
Yeah.
Say something, Cyrus. Oh, there you go. Okay. But you also,
I think here's a time.
okay, there's also, you also said something about the stock market's crashing around March based on these cycles.
Well, crashing. That I I didn't believe it was going to crash. I believed it was going to. Are we talking about March of 2020 or
March of 2020?
This March.
No, March of 2020.
Okay. No, I believed it was actually going to go up and then drop. Okay, it's going to build up and drop, and that's what I see could happen in this cycle that we're presently in right now. It could build up going into the lunar eclipse, and then shortly before the solar eclipse, it can drop. So it's the same pattern.
And then
it's just
also,
at a time when you don't. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. There is a time lapse here. I'm just trying to establish your track record here for those that are listening for the first time. You also were saying something was going to happen in the summer of 2020, starting around May 3rd to May 31st, somewhere, or June. And how did that one work out?
Cycle of chaos.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, worked out really well.
Yeah.
Everything just went bonkers.
So what we're showing here, and what you've been telling us, Cyrus, which is, when I discovered you, and I discovered you through my Jubilee cycles, so you were looking at them for cycles. I thought you were nuts. I thought you were absolutely right off the deep end. And I said, I'm staying away from this guy. And yet everything that you've been saying thus far has been scarily accurate. You may not call it, but your timing is scarily accurate. And the events, again, you may not be 100%, but you're really close with the events as to what's going on. And so you've got my ear. And, I've had you on here a number of times now, and I've written about you in my newsletter a bunch of times. So when you say you got something to say, what's that guy in the stock market, when E.F. Hutton speaks, everyone listens, whoever that is. You've got my ear. So you wrote me this week, and you said there's stuff going on, and we got to talk again. And stuff's going on. And Mark's been writing me. He says he's got stuff that he wants to share. And when can we get together? And it's been, because we got 3 different Passovers, because we're also 3 teachers, and we're teaching our own groups. It's been busy. So we found this time slot here now where we can get together and do this and get this in. So I'm going to turn the mic over to you, Cyrus. What are you seeing? When are you seeing it? And what do you think that means? Now, now hang on, because before we started talking, you also mentioned something about the grand solar minimum. And what you told me about that, I said, don't say anymore. We got to talk about this too. So where do you want to start? You want to talk with what you see coming, or do you want to talk about the grand solar minimum?
Well, let's talk about what's happening right now, and then we can lead into that if that's all right.
Yes, sir.
And just a moment.
Yes, sir. Oh, something's happened here.
My office is right here at the front door.
Okay. I thought we lost you or froze you or something.
Okay. We are presently in a cycle. We entered the cycle April 13th with the sliver. It is a pretty typical type cycle. And I told you the last time Brother Mark and I were on with you, I told you that it was so ordinary looking, it was scary. And it's working out to be that way right now. I also mentioned that because of the effect of the solar eclipse that's coming up in May, we should expect to see the countries that border the Arctic Circle to possibly get into a war. Because other times you've asked me, did I see a war coming in a cycle? And I would tell you no, that there was no indicator that there would be a war going on in the cycle. This was the first cycle that really showed the indications for war. And two of the countries I mentioned as a possibility of war, because they're near the Arctic Circle, is Russia and Ukraine. And if you've been following the news about what's going on in the Donbass area of, well, Ukraine says it's theirs and Russia says it's theirs, but there's been a massive troop buildup by both parties in the Ukraine Donbass area, which is just above the Black Sea and actually borders well, it's not the Black Sea, it's another sea, but it's in that area. It's north of Crimea. Now, all this goes back to 2014 when Crimea voted to become a Russian state. And Ukraine never accepted that. And that's the hostility between the two groups. It's just interesting that they chose this cycle period of time to confront one another. And we had roughly 100,000 plus men on either side of the border with artillery and tanks. And I've been praying that cooler heads will take control. And at the moment, and I want to stress that at the moment, it appears that Russia is going to de-escalate and start withdrawing troops from the border. Russia has used this before as a tactic to throw people off in order to invade. I don't really think that Russia will invade, but they might do something to agitate Ukraine. And I expect things to heighten as far as tension between May 3rd and June 14th. That's when it looks like that the possibility of a war would be its greatest. That's when the right before and right after the solar eclipse.
Say those dates again. May what?
May 3rd to June 14th is the heightened period for hostilities. Now it could break out at any moment, but I would, if I was going to place money on it, I'd put a penny on May 3rd to June 14th.
Okay. Now, you you were talking to me also before, or in an email about China, and this week China blinked. The United States and the Philippines moved in on the I forgot the name of those islands, and they sent Spratly Islands, and the U.S. sent a carrier fleet, and along with the Philippine Navy, and the Chinese picked up all their thousands of boats that they had there and left. And I also noted at the same time that the Americans had not sent a carrier fleet into the Black Sea, which is the one that borders on, or is where Crimea is. So,
correct.
Those are a couple of things I've noted. Okay, so during the May 3rd to 14th, that is a solar eclipse time period.
Yes,
and
sir.
That's solar eclipse.
The eclipse. Yeah.
And the eclipse is over the Arctic
Circle.
And because of that,
that's why I anticipated one of the nations that border the Arctic Circle, which include United States and Canada. It would also include Denmark by virtue of Greenland, and then it would be Northern Europe and Northern UK, Russia, Ukraine, Siberia, in that area. To me, it was really indicating either Russia, Ukraine, or Northern Europe. But then if a conflict were to break out, that would draw in NATO probably.
Okay, but like you said, from our last meeting, you didn't see nothing coming up during the next year or so, and it was and you even just said here today, it's sort of like an ordinary, boring, normal Apogee, right? So how are you?
Right.
How are you? Okay, I'm questioning you here a little bit. How are you?
Okay.
How are you drawing this conclusion, or are you speculating, or like how are you getting this thought pattern here just from the solar eclipse?
I have a question too to add to that. So I understand.
Okay, go ahead.
Part of what you were saying is when the solar and lunar eclipse are like 2 weeks apart, I see that coming up June 10th to May 26th to June 10th. And so
correct.
And I did catch where you said, because my question was, and it got answered, was how did you call out the Arctic Circle? So is it the lunar or solar eclipse that was happening in the Arctic Circle?
It's the solar eclipse.
Solar, okay. And the other question I had was, so you're going from the 3rd of May to June 14th, and yet these two eclipses are from May 26th to June 10th. So what's the reason for it backing up all the way to May 3rd?
Supermoons.
Okay.
We have 3 supermoons in this cycle. In fact, we have a supermoon coming up. Let me see. Today's the 25th. On the 27th, we'll have a supermoon. Then we'll have another supermoon on May 26th. Another moon on June 24th. Now we're already in a cycle that causes agitation, but when the supermoons are visible, that day or two, either side of the supermoon is going to bring it up another 10% at least. And so around the supermoons, I would be looking for gyrations in the stock market or maybe even in the political field.
Gotcha.
Okay, so hang on. Last time you were here, you talked about the agitation is the new word you're using. The crazy cycle is the old word you used to use. Was up around, what'd you say, 69%, which was off the record for you. You'd never seen one that high.
Yes.
And this one you're saying is
well, actually, it was actually higher, but I kind of rounded down because it was so high. And what I was seeing for the last cycle was the chaos coming into the election period.
That wasn't chaotic at all. What are you talking
about? It was showing very, very crazy. It's still carrying forward, believe me. But I could just see a huge amount of chaos during the election cycle and going forward into January. So it encompassed not only the election, but also the swearing in. And I think everybody would agree. We had a little bit of chaos at that period of time.
Cyrus, you were so spot on there. I don't have the word to describe how spot on that was. It was just awesome. But okay, so you're talking about this 10% around the supermoon here. And so is that like 10% above normal, or 10% is the scale that you're on compared to 69 before? Is that what you're saying?
Right. Now, in about the, excuse me, I'm sorry. We're at about 40% right now. Okay. We have things going on caused by the impending lunar activity that has built to 40%. Now, the day before and the day after the supermoon, you can expect the level to be 50% for those 3 days, and then drop back down the day after or 2 days after the supermoon. And then it will become 50%. 12.
Hang on. Just, I want to understand so that people listening can understand. On April 27th is a supermoon. So on April 26th, 27th, and 28th, we're going to go from the level that we're at now of being crazy from 40% up to 50%. And the same for May 26th, the day before and the day after, and the same for June 24th, the day before and day after. Am I understanding you correctly?
Correct.
And 50% is on the scale that you've been using over the last couple of years, is not as high as the 69 that we just went through during the elections, which was crazy, but it's also a jump up in the cycle. So it's something to be, I'm trying to determine how crazy this is. Is it above average, mediocre, or I'm sorry?
You'll be twice as likely to have something go wrong.
Twice as likely.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And because of the solar eclipse on June, when is it? June 10th? You're saying that it's potential for war escalations into Ukraine.
Well, yes, sir. That's correct. At that point in time, it will be about 60% in intensity. And then with the supermoon coming in on June 24th, it will go from 60 to 70 for those 3 days.
Okay, I'm just writing this stuff down, Cyrus, because if I didn't write it down last time, the first time I didn't write it down, I thought you were crazy. Second time, I wrote it down and you were and now I'm writing it down very accurately because, man, you are so we're going up, you're saying we're going up to about 60% by June 24th, correct?
Yes, sir. Between May 27th and June 24th, we'll be at 60%.
May 27th. Okay. My pen just doesn't write fast enough. I'm trying to all my notes here. Okay. Now, these supermoons here, you mentioned before something about
it's on my
stock market. Pardon me?
Yes, sir. I said the information is on my blog. So you can go to Codgerville and it'll be there.
Okay.
Yes,
so
sir.
there it is folks, if you want to write that down and go there, you can find all this information. I'll be going there just to make sure I got my notes right. Okay, so the grand solar minimum. What is that?
Yes, sir.
It doesn't sound too exciting, but I think it's got you excited.
Well, if that is truly where we are, I'm very excited because things are going to get bad very quickly in the next 2 to 5 years. They will get very bad. If you think of solar cycles as being a waveform, it builds up to a crest and then it drops off. And from each crest to the next crest is approximately 11 years. It's anywhere from 10.4 to 11.2 years from crest to crest and trough to trough. Okay? And each trough is a solar minimum and it builds to a solar maximum. And then once it reaches its peak, it drops back off to a minimum. That's normal activity.
Okay,
and being in the retail field for years. Okay.
I want you to repeat that again. The solar minimum or a maximum is a trough or a peak, 10 to 12 years. How many years was that again?
10.4 to 11.2 years. And most scientists are very comfortable calling it an 11-year cycle. Okay. And this goes on and goes on and goes on. It's been going on for hundreds of years since we know the 1600s when man started, using telescopes to observe the skies.
Okay.
So this cycle, one we're in right now is cycle 25.
Cycle 25. And the peak that we just went through with the elections, was that the peak, or are we now going down into a trough?
We're in a trough. We went into a trough in 2019.
So the peak that we just had in 2020 with the elections, that was still part of the trough, is what you're saying?
Yes, that's correct. Right now, we're still in that trough. So as you build going up into the maximum, which should be 5 years from now, roughly 4.5, something like that, what you're going to see is that the winters will get shorter and warmer and the summers will get longer and hotter. That is if it's an ordinary cycle. Okay. Many scientists are speculating that we're entering a grand solar minimum. Now it's called a grand solar minimum is because it skips and goes straight across like a flat line on a scope. If you imagine a heartbeat going up and down, when it goes to a grand solar minimum, it's just a flat line across. And you're going to go through basically 22 years of cold temperatures, longer, colder winters, shorter, more intense summers.
Okay, so I want to make sure I get that right. So the winters are longer and colder.
No, longer. Did you say
Yes.
colder or shorter?
Yes, winters are longer and colder.
Hold on, wait. That broke up. So the winters are shorter or longer?
Longer.
Okay, longer.
If we're in a grand solar minimum, which some scientists believe we are, then the winters will be longer and colder. The summers will be very short and intense. It'll start quickly, get hot, and then end quickly, and we'll be back into another long winter.
And that's what we're moving into
And
now.
I think what happens. Go ahead, Mark.
You say that's what we're moving into now in this 10.4 to 11.2 years?
Yes. what you have is 2 cycles, not 1. So it's actually going to be between 20 and 22 years.
I just got
long,
this.
cold.
Now, gentlemen, I just got this comment here, and I know that we're on 3 different calendars here with all 3 of you. I go by the barley being Aviv, and Becca's our person in Israel who helps find the barley, or one of the people there. This could be another early year next year, which is just making me insane. I'm trying not to be different, but I'm just showing this here so you can see it. But what I'm seeing when you're saying this, sorry, I'm like, so you said between 2023 and 2026 is this grand solar minimum, and you're saying the winters are going to get colder, longer, and again, that's adding to global warming, or no, global colding, or global something, but what I'm seeing from what you're saying is that the growing seasons are going to be affected. And
Correct.
You're talking about the period from 2023 to 2026. Now, this is the ballpark that I'm talking about. For 15, 16 years now, we've been telling people at sightofmoon.com that in 2020, there would be war, and we've been focusing on the war part. And that's probably what I should not have done, but I did. But that plague of Leviticus 26 comes with war, famine, and plague. And we focus on the war part.
Plagues.
And guess what's here right now? The plague part. And the United Nations is warning and telling us that 270 million people will be in famine starting in December of 2020. And we've got right now, from what I'm hearing, North Korea is in famine, big time. Yemen is in famine, big time. There's other pockets here and there. South Sudan. East Africa is suffering from the locust plague last year, and they say that the locusts are already forming again this year. We've just had a locust flyby in Zambia. Or Zambia or Zimbabwe. I've got those two mixed up. So you're saying from 2023 to 2026, again, that's another, those numbers, 2023 is the next sabbatical year. 2023 from Aviv 2023 to Aviv 2024. It's, I believe, our last chance to show Jehovah that we're going to obey him. Because we got to keep the Sabbath, we got to keep the holy days. Now we're going to differ on when those holy days are, but we got to keep those holy days. And we got to keep the Shemitah year, the sabbatical year. And 2026 is when I'm saying that we entered into the 2,300 days countdown of Daniel 9 or Daniel 8. We entered that starting on May 31st when these riots began. I got some flexibility on that a little bit, but I'm not sure. But 2026 is when it ends at the Feast of Trumpets. And that's when the two witnesses go to work. You're really starting to scare me here with the things you're saying, and you're not trying to match my dates with your predictions. You're just looking at your predictions and saying, no, this is what I see.
Brother Joe, I have your books here. I've read them, but I don't know your dates. I don't keep track of the date. I did my, the reason I did my, what I call my timeline was so I could figure out where things were historically in the scripture, and ended up with kind of a 2D kind of timeline. You, on the other hand, have this very elaborate timeline I can't even begin to understand. Okay, it's very complex, and
It's
I like things
simple.
just nice
It's
and
so simple.
say. This is the kind of stuff I do. I use paper and pencil, but no, I don't know your date. Now here's the thing I want to give you as a cautionary statement. By 2022, early 2023, we will know whether or not we're in a solar minimum or a grand solar minimum. Okay. In 2012, Piers Corbin, an astrophysicist. Okay.
How will we know? What is the thing that's going to tell us?
We won't have very intense summers, and we'll have very long winters.
So we will know by next year, 2022 and 2023,
whether we're late 2022, early 2023.
Go ahead, Mark.
Yes, sir.
So to kind of confirm what Cyrus is saying, I did watch two different researchers that have taken core samples out of glaciers around the Earth, and they're saying that based on the core samples, they've seen this cycle that he's talking about, where that probably correlates to this solar minimum, grand solar minimum, where it comes up and then it goes back down again. Probably where Cyrus is talking about these troughs. And a lot of times this is when these major earthquakes and major volcano eruptions are happening. But they were predicting last summer that we were going to start having longer winters that were going to be very, very cold, matching what he's saying. And so it is interesting. And so I wanted to say, if we're going to have longer winters, that shouldn't mean that the barley is going to mature sooner. It should mean it's going to mature later. If a winter's colder, that should shorten the growing cycle, is from what I'm understanding.
I would agree with you, Mark. I'm just spinning here. There's so much going on that I can't wrap my brain around it all. And you guys say I'm complex. You guys are complex to me. But what you just said, Mark, is so basically what it takes is three of us just to wrap our brain around what Jehovah is doing all over the place. So did you just say, Mark, that this is going to cause more earthquakes in the year to come? Did I hear that?
Yeah, that's what they show in their study, and I'm sure Cyrus can confirm that, is that when this happens, when we enter into that phase, through history, they've been able to, through graphs and the research, to show this is when the big mega eruptions around the globe have happened in the past, and the big earthquakes.
And we've got a volcano going off in St. Vincent, I think it is, in the Caribbean right now.
Yes, sir.
I also wanted to say, you had talked about even though we have different calendars, my hope and my view is that since we know that Abba does things on feast dates, I'm hoping a year is coming where we have 3 feast dates in a row, that a major biblical event happens on one of the 3 in a row, on those 3, that Abba is going to tell us through his signature, this is the right deal. And then we can all come to an agreement. I mean, it's like, okay, if this is it, we can all come to agreement. God has put his signature on it. A biblical event is happening on this day. This has got to be a feast date, and it's 3 in a row. So that would be awesome.
March 11th, 2020, WHO announced a worldwide pandemic. That just so happened to be the feast of Passover for me. That very
3
day.
in a row.
Just okay. So, okay. I hear you. Anyway, Cyrus, you got more to add to what you're saying? Like, you're already sort of blowing us out of the water now.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Well, I back up to our first meeting when I was in New Mexico. You asked if I heard anything, and I told you, yes, I did hear something. And it was very, very plain. And that was ping pong earthquakes and ping pong volcanoes. Okay. I don't know if you remember that. That was in our very first meeting when you would find out if I was crazy or not. And of course, you found out I was. So, what that was, and I've commented it on my website, and I've talked about it subsequently, but that is earthquakes on the west side of the Pacific, and matching corresponding earthquakes on the east side of the Pacific. It'd go back and forth. And earthquakes, volcanoes, earthquakes and volcanoes. And I think we're seeing that now. And yeah, I was going to say, I was told in 2012 that in 2019, a grand solar minimum by a very intelligent PhD astrophysicist. And he was forecasting weather out a year in advance based on the cycles of the sun. And I can't do that. I'm not an astrophysicist. But what I'm seeing is by 2022, the winter of 2022, 2023, we should know whether or not we're in a grand solar minimum just by the weather. He's looking, he uses the SOHO satellite and all this stuff. He knows a lot more about that than I ever will. But that is, if we are going into a grand solar minimum, we haven't to see famine yet. Famine, because the planting dates and the harvest dates are greatly changed. Areas like in Canada, Alberta, and places like that where they're growing wheat now, it'll be too cold to grow wheat. Even northern United States, Montana, North Dakota, places that are major wheat producers are not going to be able to grow wheat. It's going to be too cold. If it is beyond a one cycle grand solar minimum, remember, a solar minimum is this valley. It builds up to a solar maximum, and then it drops off into another solar minimum every 11 years. A grand solar minimum is when it does not go up. It goes all the way across for 11 years. So you have the 5.5 years on one side, 5.5 years on the other. And when you put it together, you're going to have about 22 years of cold, wet weather.
Yeah.
And so you're not going to be able to plant in those usual places. You're going to have to move further south to plant. And this is going to cause major geopolitical disruptions.
So
I just put in what you were saying. Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so this is one of the reasons why because of the intense summers that could be coming, that we could be seeing, obviously those have a tendency to really dry things out, especially if there's no rain coming. And
that's correct.
My point on that is it may not be a good place to be in heavily treed, forested areas, because when the forests get dried out, when there does hit a spark, this is where you get major fires. And the scriptures have pointed out to me that there are fires coming, that there's going to be a consuming fire. Well, what greater way to make things susceptible is to create an environment where you've dried out all of the forest and the treed areas, and now it's intense heat that will make it even easier for fire to just go raging crazy. And this could be a very disastrous area for the very heavy treed areas in this kind of environment.
We have
the
second curse of Leviticus 26, making your skies like iron and your fields like brass. That's extreme weather. That's droughts. That's That's what, and since that time,
Yeah.
so that, we said that began in the second sabbatical cycle, and it's compounded with the first one, and then they're compounded with the third, and they're all compounded with the fourth, which is the one we're in now. So these things are still coming and still getting hotter. As what I've been saying and seeing, we're all arriving at the same conclusions through different methods, and it's
interesting. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's a real nice word. It's just weird. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
So okay, I'm afraid to ask Cyrus, are you done yet? Or is there more?
I better cut it off, or we're not going to get to hear Brother Mark.
No,
he mentioned the consuming fire, and I was about to. That doesn't come until 2045, so that's different.
Hang on. Well, stop.
Well, but even though that's the consuming fire, it doesn't mean that there won't be other raging fires. But that one's going to be over sweeping everything. I think there's going to be other fires going to be. I would not want to be in places. I've seen pictures I've seen paintings back in the 14 and 1700s where they had painted things coming down from the heavens that were little balls of fire coming down, burning cities and towns. And I'm just telling you, I wouldn't want to be in a very heavy treed and wooded area, because that's just a disaster for fires.
That was also a period of time of a solar minimum. That was a grand solar minimum.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So why did you say
they called it the Little Ice Age? It's either going to be 2040, 2046 in the fall.
So what's that? Another grand solar minimum? Because for me, that's the end of this 6th millennial day, and the start of the 7th millennium.
That's correct. That's correct. What I believe we have enough evidence for is that the sun is going to micronova.
Okay, I think I didn't hear you said micronova, and then you kept talking, but I couldn't hear anything you said.
Well, I just said micronova. That was my last statement. That's why I asked you, when do you believe that the wedding feast of the Lamb is going to be?
Okay, yes. So according to the Feast of Shavuot represents the engagement. It's the giving of the Torah. It's the giving of the law. It's the it's the second wave offering. The first wave offering was at Passover. That wave offering is when the dead came back to life, and they were raised up when he died, and they came back to life after he came back to life. Matthew 27, verse 50 to 54. He came, and they went into Jerusalem. Those were the barley. That was the first wave offering. That's the first people that were ever raised up out of the grave and ascended to heaven. Now we got 24 elders in heaven, and the elders as ancestors. So the next wave offering is Shavuot. There's no wave offering at the Feast of Trumpets. We've all been thinking the Feast of Trumpets, the last trump. That's when, it's Shavuot. There were trumpets at Shavuot, the coming down of the Jehovah on the Mount Sinai. That's the wave offering, when those of us who are alive will be changed in the twinkling of an eye, but the dead will rise first and meet him in the sky. That's when that takes place. And I believe that takes place because 144 go through the tribulation and are changed at the end of the tribulation, go up. And so that only can happen at the end of the tribulation in 2033, which is the year I believe the end of the tribulation is. Shavuot 2033, and we are raised up. At Atonement 2033, Satan is locked away for the 7th millennium. But that's not the end. That's only part way. That's Shavuot. We still got the fall holy days to come along. We have the Feast of Trumpets, when the war that's that's the Great Tribulation. I believe that starts in 2030. I believe Israel will already been judged before that. That's coming up to 2026. From now until 2026, the two witnesses from 2026 to 2030 at Passover, they're killed. Then the Great Tribulation, the woman flees into the wilderness for 3.5 years. At the end of that tribulation, Satan's locked away, 2033. Then we got atonement. Now, atonement takes place at the end of the 7th millennium, when Satan is thrown into the lake of fire again, right? At the end of the 7th millennium, Satan is let loose for a little while. Gog and Magog come to attack Jerusalem. They're obliterated. And then all those who have ever died are brought back to life. Again, my timing's a little bit off on that, but we got 1,000 years to figure that out. And they're brought back to life to giving them a chance to obey. And then those, Satan and death, are thrown in the lake of fire, and those who don't want to obey are thrown in the lake of fire, and that's it. They're snuffed out forever. That's the end of the 7th millennium. That's the end of the 7th day of Sukkot, the last great day. But then there's the 8th day, Shemini Atzeret, which nobody ever talks about. And we're told that it's the 8th day feast of Sukkot, and that's all you're told. And Judah makes it the end of the reading of the Torah and the beginning of the reading of Torah, because they don't know what it means. The same as they don't know what Yom Teruah means, the Feast of Shouting, the day he came, the day he was born, the day he's going to come back on. So the 8th day represents the 8th millennium. That's the consummation of the marriage. You got 7 days for the party, which is the 7th millennium, but at the end, when Satan's gone, Revelation 20, 21 and 22, New Jerusalem comes down. That's our dowry, or the gift from our groom coming down. And then we live with him. There's no more day. There's no more night. There's no more war. There's no more fighting. We live with him at that time forever. So the wedding, I don't believe there's going to be any wedding taking place at 2045. I believe it'll take place at the end of the 7th and beginning of the 8th millennium. Exactly when? I know, somewhere around that time. And could be the very last Jubilee of the 7th millennium, just like this one as a repeat. It could be just like that. Then the 8th millennium begins, and we start expanding into the universe all over the place. So that's the way I see things. That's based on the Jubilee cycles and understanding of them related to the Moedim, putting them all together. And for me, Cyrus, that's very simple. It's right there. It's plain Jane. It's so simple to understand. So it's, I think we all need each other to help understand all these things. So that's when I see the wedding taking place. So, Mark, you have wanted to, for a while, share some more information. And here's the thing about Mark, just in case you guys don't know, he's got stuff he wants to share. He wants to show us stuff. And then he comes on, and he even did it today. I don't want to show you all. I'm going to save some for the next time. No. Anyway, he gives us some fantastic constellations and things that are going on up there. Go and look at the last videos that we did, the last two. They're unbelievably beautiful, and the timing is wow.
Yes.
So, Mark, Cyrus and I are both sitting here waiting. It's not like, Cyrus didn't have nothing to say today. So what do you have to say? What do you have to show us? And you can share your screen whenever you're ready.
So it is interesting that I was going to ask Cyrus because of the thing that I had talked about that's coming in December, from the 1st of December all the way to the end of December. This looks like it correlates with this next lunar solar thing that goes from the 25th of November, from the 4th of November 19th to December 4th. It looks like it's another 2-week span between a solar and lunar. And that's very interesting because based on what you you said, Cyrus, there is an interesting event happening December that I find very interesting. And before we go there, I just wanted to, because you also talked about here in April, starting with the 25th and 26th, I'll share this screen with you so that you can see. Window. Okay, hopefully you can see that. Can everyone see that?
1 second, 1 second. Yeah, I can see it. You got to zoom in on stuff though.
Yeah, I'm going to zoom in. So the reason this is all happening on tonight. Okay, so this is all tonight. And so the interesting thing about tonight is Jupiter, the king planet, is moving into the man that's pouring out. And so it almost gives this picture of a pouring out begins or pouring out starts. And of course, it can always be because it's a two vial. Here it only shows one, but in the ancient pictures, he has one in each hand. So there's a pouring out of wrath or there's a pouring out of blessing. And of course, the fish are which is, the nation of Israel or the people of Israel can be one of the recipients of this pouring out that's going on. So that's starting tonight where Jupiter goes in. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me interrupt you, Mark, because Friday or Saturday, Gaza started sending rockets into Israel, and Israel retaliated, I think, Saturday afternoon or evening, I'm not sure which. And the Spratly incident took place this past week as well. So I'm not sure if they're all connected to this. I'm just making an observation.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I do. I just find this very interesting that Jupiter, the king planet, is moving into this area of pouring out, and it's going to be there. It goes in on the tonight, and it'll be there till August the 19th. It'll come out on August 19th, wow. And it goes back in, so it'll do a retrograde. It's going to stop about here and then go backwards from August 19th to December. And from August 19th to December, it's going to be back in the slain goat for the redeemed. And it'll
August or November? August or November? You said November before.
No, well, this is about the November is a different event that's happening.
Okay, so, I'm sorry.
So we're talking about Jupiter here, the king planet going in here. So it enters in tonight, comes back out in August, the 19th of August, and comes back into this slain goat, and then it goes back into the pouring out in December. Which is interesting. This whole December thing has got many facets coming together again. So another pouring out again in December, but it'll stay in this and not retro out for some time. And so that's, to me, based on what you guys have been talking about, focusing in on what Cyrus has brought out about entering into this cycle here on the 25th and 26th, that's very interesting. So what could be being poured out over the next several months? So you take what Cyrus has contributed. It's very interesting. So I that's why I really wanted to hear what Cyrus had to say, because then it gives me an opportunity to see correlations with what he's bringing out. And of course, you, Joe, get to now take what Cyrus says, what I say, and bring it together and the things that so we're all doing similar things. Okay, so this is what Jupiter's doing. Tonight, you're going to see Venus, the sun, and Mercury all are going to be in the Lamb of God, or the slain. So here you have, you can see that the ram has got a bent leg, and of course E.W. Bullinger says that his leg is bent as though he's been slain. So that's a very interesting picture. And then you have this interesting scenario. So tonight, Mars is in this place here that the sun usually ends up being on the summer solstice. It's in this area here at the front of the bull's horns, and it's at the tip of the scepter of Orion, the Or being the light bringer. So this Mars here is now in this spot tonight, which is another very interesting scenario.
Mark, is that, if I remember correctly, was Mars not in the horns here just prior to this?
Yes, yeah, it's been in the horns here, and it's been moving this direction over the past several weeks.
Okay,
Yeah.
so and we were trying to understand what that meant, and so it was in the horns. This past 6 months?
Yeah, well, it's been there for let's say at least a month or so. Yeah,
a month or so.
Yeah,
and if Mars represents war, we have basically no wars going on right now. And Taurus, I'm not sure what Taurus represents, the charging or Jehovah charging. Are we able to make anything out of that? I'm just trying.
I just find it very interesting that you if you look at this as a scepter, a lot of king's scepters had a gem on the top of the scepter. And so here is a red gem at the top of the scepter. It's just a very interesting thing to me, the coming together with what's happening with Jupiter and the other two that are in the ram. I find that very interesting sign. So I'll move over to this other picture, which is tonight. This is what's going to happen tonight. The moon is going to be in the barley of the Virgin, the barley that's in her hand. I know you like seeing those pictures, Joe, because but so the moon's going to be right here in the barley of the Virgin tonight. So it's a very interesting picture and just really cool stuff. So I wanted to show these things because this is, as Cyrus says, we're entering into this cycle here, and we'll have to watch and see what the things that take place. But this is what the heavens are showing us for tonight. Okay. I want to transition into
now. And Mark, you're keeping Passover starting tonight.
Tonight is our Pesach meal.
Okay.
And we'll look up tonight. And we'll see the moon in the barley of the hand of the Virgin.
Okay.
All right. So I think that was all I had on that page. Yep. So I wanted to show you, this is what's coming in December. From December 3rd to December the 29th, which Cyrus is going to have a lot of fun with on this next 2-week solar lunar eclipse thing from November 19th to December 4th. And so this is a comet Leonard that comes into the Redeemer called Bootes. And of course, Bo, the first two letters, is he that cometh. And so E.W. Bullinger says that this is called a walking man. He's bearing a branch called Arcturus. This whole thing in biblical astronomy means he comes or he cometh. And so it's a very interesting picture. The Greeks called him Bootes, which is from the Hebrew root bo, to come, meaning the coming. But he's got this sickle in his hand. So what's interesting is what's the sickle about? This is about, harvesting. This is about, thrusting in to reap and harvest something. So what's the interesting thing I note about harvesting is if people have been sowing unrighteousness, what are they going to reap? Unrighteousness. If they've been sowing righteousness, then they're going to reap righteousness. So it's a very interesting scenario that this does. So this comet Leonard moves into this comet or this constellation Bootes. Then it moves into the head of the serpent. And This is called struggling with the enemy.
When?
And say that again.
When does that move into the head? So that comet is in Boots there tonight.
All
this is
no. This is all happening in December.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, all the pictures I'm showing you now is everything that's going on in December, from the 3rd to the 29th of December. So in December, this comet, Leonard, moves through the head of the serpent, cutting the head off. And again, in biblical astronomy, this is called struggling with the enemy, right? The Ophiuchus, he's wrestling with this serpent. Then the next thing that happens is I'm sorry that I put that, it looked like it's upside down. It is close to Hercules here, which is the mighty man, a man kneeling on one knee, and it means the mighty vanquisher seeming to sink in the conflict, but yet he rises again, okay? So then it moves into, from the head into Ophiuchus, again, the Redeemer wrestling with the enemy. And then it transitions through the tail of the serpent, cutting the tail off. So it cut the head off, then it cuts the tail off. And then it moves into the shield. And then it finally goes into Sagittarius, which is the archer. The two-natured conquer, going forth conquering and to conquer. So it goes right into his weapons of the arrows. We've got scriptures talking about the man who sits on the horse, who has the bow and has the arrows. And so, this is now would appear to be doing battle, pulling out the arrows and doing battle. And so it's a very interesting scenario that happens coming up here in December. And then the last thing that it does is it moves into the fish, back into the fish, as it ends on the 29th of December.
Which of the fish? Is that the one on the top or the bottom?
This fish is the one that we saw that was drinking the water of Aquarius, the water bearer.
Okay.
And this is one of the four corners of the heavens down here, close to might be this one right here. So it's one of the four corners of the heavens. So, I wanted to show these things because, Cyrus had been talking about the stuff happening now. He didn't get a chance to talk about what's coming here with this 2-week solar. So I would like to, now that he's seen this, I'd like to get his thoughts on this 2-week thing coming in November and December, the solar. And so Cyrus, if you'd like to share what your thoughts are on that.
I have not looked at the cycle, but we talked about it. The very same thing, not the comet, but the shield and the bow and the arrows. We talked about all that yesterday in scripture as we were reading. And I'm going to go back and look, because we're still in a cycle, so I don't try to get ahead of myself into the next cycle. But the one thing I do remember from the solar eclipse, if I may be wrong, but I think I remember that it is at the bottom. Okay, it's going to affect the South Pole. Okay, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Antarctica, Tierra del Fuego, Argentina. Places like that will be affected by the coming solar eclipse in December. I don't know yet. Like I say, I haven't done calculations whatsoever on this coming cycle, because really I've been concentrating on trying to establish the dates for the possibility of war. And
yeah,
that's why I've been mulling on the coming cycle.
Right.
So, Mark, I know you don't want to interpret what these are and what they mean. but what do you what just off the top of your head, what do you think? Is this? Are you seeing a war here between the serpent and Boots?
Well, for me, it's a very clear picture because of it going into Booties, the man with the sickle, and then it goes into the struggling with the enemy. It's in the struggling with the enemy, and then the conquer, going for the conquer. These are all pictures of battle and conflict. There's no question. That's what it's showing. And then, of course, what we do is we look to see what kind of conflicts and battles may take place during that time. And then we get a confirmation with what the heavens are showing that's taking place with what takes place here on the earth. But it's without a doubt, it's picturing conflict.
Because we've been expecting and looking in this 4th sabbatical cycle, we're looking for a war, plague, and famine.
So whatever is going to be the conflict, the head and tail of something's getting cut off here. So, and then it shows, this is the good news is the Redeemer. He's going to win the battle. He's going to be, he's going to vanquish the enemies. And so there is a good news. So,
okay. So when you're saying this, the scripture in my brain keeps coming up, the head and the tail. He will cut off head and tail. And I'm thinking Isaiah, and I can't remember where, but he's going to cut off head and tail. Jehovah's going to cut off head and tail. He's kind of cutting off head and tail of Israel, though. Or am I thinking in Jeremiah? I'm not sure where I'm at with this. Does that ring a bell with you?
Yeah, I thought I stuck I thought I put the scripture in here about the head and the tail, but I must have not yet. I looked it up too, and there's 3 different instances where the head and tail come up in scriptures. So, yeah, I didn't put it in here. I thought I did.
Okay. Okay, so that's the end of 2021.
Yeah. Now, the only other thing happening in this year, we've talked about this, and that is this, you guys have seen this. This is this comet, Soho is the name of the comet, in October. This is October the 8th. You can see the comet down here. It first appears in the scales of judgment right here. Okay. And so you've got Venus down here. You've got, I'm thinking that may be the moon. I'm not sure, but it may be the moon. So the comet first appears here in the scales of judgment, which is interesting because we've got Jupiter, the king planet, going into the pouring out. We got this comet appearing in the scales of judgment. And then we've got this other event in December that looks like conflict. So very interesting, but that could be, this may be Mercury, Mars, and the sun here in the hand of the Virgin and the barley at the time this comet appears in the scales. And then the next thing that we see is October 17th, this comet Soho moves on up to where Mars is in the Virgin's hand. And then the next day, it does this sweeping movement, lighting up the heavens, going through the Virgin's head and just lighting up the lion like it was a spotlight. So it's really a really cool picture, a really awesome graphic that shows what could be taking place come October, mid-October
of 2021.
Yes, sir.
Could you also interpret that as the woman, the Virgin, Israel, finally turning and looking at their Messiah, their King?
I hadn't looked at it that way, but I mean, certainly it's a possibility. There's it's just, these are interesting things, and I like it when we come together because I see one thing, and so to have other eyes view and get comments on it, especially with the research that you both do differently. Thank you, Lisa, for that, scripture reference. Yeah. So, I mean, what head and tail is going to get cut off? We'll see. But it's an enemy. It's an enemy that's going to be cut off. It's not the saints, the holy ones. It's not them. It's the enemy being cut off here.
Okay.
And I know I've got about 15 minutes left. And so I did make so I would like to see us come together again at some point down the road to talk about, I did do I spent some time looking at these comets. Okay. So I haven't really done that in the past. So I put a chart together on when these comets are coming. And when I did that, the Father's always good and lets me see something I hadn't seen before. And so I saw that there is a comet that has, you're already starting to smile. And the only reason I can't talk about it now is because it's at least an hour discussion. It's at least an hour. And I just don't have that time this morning. As you already knew, because I told you yesterday, I didn't have that kind of time.
Yeah.
But it's I saw this comet. And so when I looked at the interesting paths that it takes, I just had a curiosity. So my curiosity, like you both get these curiosities, or a thought comes in your head and you go to look to see if it's true, and lo and behold, it ends up happening like you thought it might. So I went back to the time frame that you point out, the birth of Messiah, and this is when within that 3 to 4 year period, Jupiter does this triple retrograde, the triple crossover, the King's Star, right? That many have called the Star of Bethlehem. Well, E.W. Bullinger says that he believes that something should have happened, or it would have happened, in the constellation called Coma. And Coma is a constellation that it's right here. This is Coma right here. So our normal pictures show it as a wig, but it actually is this constellation is a picture of a woman with a child in her lap.
Mark, you're not showing us anything there. All we're seeing is Leo right now.
Okay, so is it right here?
We're still seeing the comet shining on Leo.
Okay, right here.
Okay.
You see it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So the Virgin is holding a branch in her hand, and next to her branch is this comet, or this constellation called Coma. And in the ancient pictures, it was a woman sitting in a chair holding a child in her lap. Now think about Isaiah 53, about this child, that is a child that's been born to us. And so you see this whole thing about the child, and E.W. Bullinger says he thinks that the sign that appeared around the birth of the Messiah would have happened in this constellation Coma, because everyone knew it was the desire of the nations. So when I was looking for this particular comet, I saw that around this time of the birth of the Messiah, this comet makes a path. I'm going to show you, because I can show you here in this graphic where it starts. So this comet starts right here in Leo, right? The comet starts right here. It crosses right through the King's Star. It passes through Leo, and it comes right through the child that's in the woman's lap, the desire of the nations, and then it ends and comes right into the branch. Well, I mean, what an incredible graphic to see that the here around the birth of the Messiah, this comet goes through the King's Star into the desire of the nations, which E.W. Bullinger says it had to have happened there, and then into the branch. Well, that's what Isaiah 53, I mean, all these prophecies about the coming Redeemer, It's talking about, behold, I my servant the branch. Here's the child that's coming to be born to us. So, I mean, I was stunned, and so I thought, okay, this thought came to me. If this was a sign of the Son of Man, that Yeshua says, again, you'll see the sign of the Son of Man coming in the clouds. What if this comet is directly related to the signs of the Messiah? Just a thought I had. So I went back to this. The next thought that came to me, you'll like, is when the Father took Abraham outside and said, in English it says, "Can you count the stars?" But in Hebrew it's, "Can you relate the story?" What if this comet was making the same path at this time of Revelation? So I went to your book and I looked back at the time that you said Abraham is receiving this revelation. I think it was 1809 BCE, right?
1809, 1810, yeah.
Yeah. Would you believe that this same comet is making this same path that year?
I want to say no, but wow.
And what if Abraham knew that meant that's a Redeemer coming, the one we're hoping for in the future, and because he believed in that sign coming, it was credited to him as righteousness. So then I said, I wonder if this comet makes the same path in the future.
That's what I was going to ask. I'm just trying to bite my tongue off, not interrupt you here. Keep going. Give me a year.
Well, I'm not going to give a year yet because we've got
okay.
That's for the next show. So yes, it's coming. And yes, I will say it's in the 30s. You're going to love the date. I mean, you're going to love it. This goes right in line with all the stuff we've been talking about.
You guys, ladies and gentlemen, do you see what he does to us every single time we say goodbye to you? He does this to us offline in the back room when we stopped recording. He makes me crazy. He makes me absolutely crazy. And today, my pen runs out of ink halfway through what Cyrus is teaching. And I don't have no other pens around. I'm just frustrated here.
Well, I have to tell you that I'm just, because of what I've seen through this, I'm just beside myself. I'm like, this is just absolutely crazy. And I will tell you, because my wife asked me, she said, okay, well, what if this comet makes the same path every, so I went back to 1940. I didn't have a chance to go back further, but it hadn't done this path. I will tell you that this particular comet that I think it could be associated with the Messiah, does make
Soho.
No, it's a different comet.
Different. Okay.
But it does make other paths, and I'm wondering, and this will be a topic for another show, could this path this comet makes in other paths also give us a sign of something very important of what's to come? And I will tell you that it makes a different path in 2028, a very interesting path, and it goes through Cetus, the sea monster, the dragon, cuts his head off, goes to the ram, and it goes into Perseus, another redeemer, in 2028, which is very interesting. So,
repeat that again.
Okay, so it goes through the head of the dragon, cutting the dragon's head off.
The dragon? Are you saying Cetus?
Cetus, the sea monster,
Cetus?
yeah.
Okay.
Leviathan, yeah. And then it goes into Ares the ram, and then it goes into Perseus, which is another redeemer. Yeah, he's another redeemer holding a weapon and a slain enemy in his hand. And so I'm putting together a slide like I did here with booties and those, showing you what E.W. Bullinger calls them and what how he relates them to biblical astronomy. I'm going to do that with Perseus and Ares and Cetus for this next show.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, if you got a question right now, it's the time to ask it. Put it in the chat. If it's a good question, we'll put it on here. My head's just so many people say I hurt their brains. You two guys have just hurt my brain here today, and my pen's out of ink, which makes me even more crazy. I just want to thank you both. I want to thank Cyrus for the work that he's doing, studying and sharing, and it's just unbelievable. It's just wow. And Mark, the stuff you're doing, this picture you have here is just stunningly beautiful. But you've now got me so excited. I can't wait to come up and hug you. And I know we can't touch each other, guys. Stay 6 feet away, or 6,000 miles, whatever we are. But yeah, we got to do this again.
Yeah.
You have not, neither one of us has failed to fascinate me each time we've talked. Okay, so websites, yes. Okay. Here, we'll put this one up here. This is, I think, for Cyrus. Cyrus, can you see that? Can you read that and answer that?
Yes, sir. Yes, right now we're in an ordinary minimum. This is that trough between the two peaks. That now, if it goes further than 2 more years, we'll know that we're in a grand solar minimum, which will be basically 22 years of cold weather.
Okay. And
I mean, the grand solar minimums are always associated with famine.
I've lost your website, Mark. I'm sorry.
It's livingmessiah.com. It's there now. You can see it. It's right below my name.
It's on your name. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Livingmessiah.com.
And mine is this one, sightedmoon.com. Okay. We've got any other questions? Main problem.
They're asking when's the next show.
Yeah. Well, that's you're just starting Passover, so you got 50 days to count to Shavuot. So 50 days from now is not a good time for you. Cyrus and I are both free. No, Cyrus is kind enough to Shavuot now. He's about next month, I believe, for Cyrus, and I'm all done till trumpet.
Yeah, really.
Celebrated the third Sabbath of 7 Sabbaths. Yes.
You're on the third one right now, so you got 4 more. So that's a month from today. A month from today is April, May 25th or somewhere around there. So let's do it after that.
Yes, sir.
One other thing I wanted to share is because go ahead.
Mark, you got the mic.
Okay, so I don't know. I didn't see this, and I just now realized I missed something. So because Cyrus is talking about 2023, he brought that up a couple times. 2023. What was it? We would know. We would know things. I wrote the date down. Anyway, so this same comment that I think is related to the Mashiach, in 2023, it makes another interesting path. And so in the show, because of this 2023 and because of the dates that align with some of the things that we've talked about today, I think it would be really good for us to maybe on the next show, let's focus in on the 2023 path and the 2028 path, because there's a lot we can talk about in deciphering just what it does then. And then we can look at, depending on what time we have, we may have to go to another show to talk about the 2030. You
know what Mark's doing? He's developing a TV series here. Just a little bit each week. But hey, you know what?
How can you just? I don't know how I can't talk about this stuff and just. It's going to take a lot of time.
No, it's awesome. Okay, so 2023 though, while both
Brother
of you,
Mark.
both you, go ahead, Cyrus.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry about the time lag. have either of you heard about the possibility of this December being the time when the earth reels to and fro like a drunkard?
Wow. That would be interesting. I have not heard that.
No, I've not heard that either.
Okay. I just wanted to check.
I want to say that 2023 is a Shemitah year. From Aviv 2023 to Aviv 2024.
Yeah.
In the stuff that you're researching, Cyrus, and in the stuff that you're researching, Mark, if on the next show, can we see if we can find anything to tie into that? And I don't know how it would tie in, I don't know. I'm just asking if you can keep that in your mind.
Yep.
And one other question, Cyrus, I believe that you said to me before, either in an email or I think it was an email, that, and this is going to get everyone all excited again, that you see a stock market correction coming based on
in this cycle,
based on the start of it in April. Have I got that right? April 26th?
Yes, sir. It begins to manifest between the time of the solar eclipse and lunar eclipse. I see that the stock market could do some gyrations up and then gyrations down.
So May 26th.
I wrote about it on my.
So you got the lunar eclipse on May 26th and the solar eclipse on June 10th.
Correct.
And again, this is
the period of time between the steps. It's on my website. Correct.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, wow. I don't know what else to say. Just wow. I thank you, Cyrus. I thank you for this work that you're doing. I thank you, Mark, for the work that you're doing. I thank you both for joining me and coming together and sharing this with us. And I just realized I didn't ask either one of you to do the opening prayer to start this meeting off. And I'm sorry. Forgive me. Mark, can I ask you to do the closing prayer now?
Absolutely. Father, we come to you in your son, Yahushua's name. We give you such thanks for the things that you're opening our eyes and our ears to. You're opening our hearts. Father, you're revealing things in these days. May we be diligent to be humble in our research. May we be diligent to seek you and ask you, Father, what you're showing. May we not try to project too much into things that's just man-driven, but try to keep things what the scriptures show, what you're showing in the heavens, and then match it with what's going on the earth. Father, you're so awesome and you're so great. You know these things, and you have the ability to open our eyes and our ears to it. And we're just thankful. These things are just like, as they've said, it's wow. We're enjoying it, and we are thankful that you do these things. And may you continue to open all of our eyes, not just the three of us, but everyone that's watching, everyone that has an interest. Open everyone's eyes, their ears, give them knowledge and revelation. May your spirit pour out even more each day going forward. May you pour out in such a way that, Father, greater knowledge and revelation comes to us that we can see. You say you do nothing unless you reveal it through your prophets. And of course, none of us are saying that we're a prophet, but we are people that are looking and listening, and we are wanting. You say if we knock, it'll be open. If we seek, we'll find. Well, Father, we're knocking and we're seeking, and we're thankful that you're showing, and we want more. We glorify you and praise you. May you be magnified and glorified in everything that we say and that we do, and all the research that we all bring forward. In your son's name we give thanks. Amen.
Amen. Amen. And Cyrus, can I ask you just one more little favor? Would you do the Aaronic blessing over everyone here right now? We're trying to do that at Sight of the Moon more often and teach people to start blessing their own families. Would you bless us now with that? And I'm just checking. Yes,
sir.
This will be online. This will be on my YouTube channel right after we say goodbye here and close the meeting. It'll be there, and you can watch it again and share it with others. And we do hope you will share it with others and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It helps us. It helps us. So whenever you're ready, Cyrus, please.
I'll do it English, and I start in verse 22. And Jehovah spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to Aaron and his son, saying, this is how you bless the children of Israel. Say to them, Jehovah bless you and guard you. Jehovah make his face shine upon you and show favor to you. Jehovah lift up his face upon you and give you peace. Thus they put name on the children of Israel, and I myself shall bless them. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us in the chat area live here from sightedmoon.com and Codgerville and livingmessiah.com. Shalom, everyone.
Shalom.
Shalom.